Hey, how is everybody doing today? I'm back here with Michael for our regular Thursday outings. How you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing good. Hi, all um, those that know us, love us, and follow. Um, Lessons learned. I will take my time and be more patient. So we always learn things, and we always try and improve with life. But yeah, things are good. Um, I don't know. Do we want to get into news today? Because there's lots of stuff going on as well, but half of it we can't touch. We could go into the 5 hours of speeches and lectures that are going to be happening on Saturday on Leo's organization, or we could talk about um, some of the conversations we've had over this week, or we can find something new as well. That's something that we can focus on what you choose.
Well, I want you to tell everybody a little bit about what you're doing Saturday for sure, because I can put a little ticker on the bottom for everybody, but I feel like you can give us a little more info on it.
Yeah, that's Orion Rising is Leo's channel. Hey, Mud Rabbit, how you doing? Welcome to the group. So Leo, the guest that you had on here last week, I guess.
It was a few weeks ago, wasn't it? I don't know.
But anyway, he the conversation that we had with him was good. We ended up in a certain understanding and synchronicity, and so he invited me to participate in the lecture series that they're going to be having. Hey, Mud Rabbit, thank you very much. Yes, it's a beautiful day. Brazil's usually good. Thanks, Mud Rabbit. So on Saturday, what the title of the series of lectures is going to be is a question: is your reality holding you back? Okay, so all of the lectures have certain different viewpoints, perspectives on what, for example, the question that they posited to me, which I'm assuming is going to be a similar question that they placed before everyone else, because we've got certain things in common, our viewpoint on dimensional, well, the multiverse, actually, the probabilistic quantum multiverse, that it is our holographic reality, right? But the question in reality is, how do we how do we use consciousness to materialize things in this quantum world? Okay, and so I've got a half an hour to talk on that, and we're going to have four other people that will be speaking on similar topics like that. So I think it's a deep dive.
Are you going to be talking with somebody else, or are you going to be in a group chat, or how is it set up?
Well, they usually got a Zoom and the group chats and that sort of thing. I don't know how exactly they're going to set this one up, but I got a half hour to speak freely, have questions afterwards, and that sort of thing. I'm on for maybe about 45 minutes, including post lecture, post speech questions, and that sort of thing. So I'm assuming it would be something similar with all the others. Because otherwise, five people talking over each other can be somewhat difficult.
A little messy. I have to give a shout out again to Leo, because he definitely helped us update our platform we've been using and got us on the StreamYard, and we got information we can give out in the queue on the bottom. He definitely gave me a guided tour, and I got to make sure to thank him. They have some kind of incentive program where if Leo gets in contact, I haven't talked to him in a little bit, but if he gets in contact with me again soon, and I'll probably reach out to him and give me his information, I can use him as a reference, and he gets $25 off or something. So might as well trickle back to love.
He's Orion Rising on YouTube and on Facebook, and so he's going to be streaming the lectures on there. And his particular YouTube channel also has his lectures on the theory of one, and lots of other things that we already talked about in the interviews that we did on your show, and hopefully future interviews that we may do as well, because those were some interesting topics.
Oh yeah. Definitely was.
Are we going to get back into aliens, UFOs, or swamp monsters, or um, lab grown meat, or how many of those topics that we were talking about before this?
Yeah, we've probably been talking in the last 2 hours, but I wanted to answer Mud Rabbit's question too. Mud Rabbit, it's very beautiful day here, but we have over 90% humidity right now, and it's absolutely miserable. It feels like you just you get hit in the face with a sweater when you walk outside. The humidity right now is just ridiculous. We came back from a drought and then basically had monsoon season for the last week, and now it's all drying out in the ground. So it's a mess. Oh yeah, you guys sounds like Mud Rabbit gets a lot of the humidity as well.
She's in Florida, of course she does. That's why everybody loves it down there. And I wasn't going to mention anything because I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah, you guys get decent humidity there, but I know the Midwest and Northern Midwest is pretty high in humidity compared to most of the U.S.
Where I am right now was at one point the second rainiest city on the planet. That was in 82, but we always rank up there. This place rains like crazy. That's why I have the trees that I have. It's warm. It's temperate climate. It's not Arctic and that sort of thing, but it's also not tropical. And it's getting further away from subtropical. Subtropical would be more like Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and that sort of thing. And then closer to the south, it's more of the temperate zone, which means that we got a decent winter. As you go further south, like Argentina, yeah, they've got snow in the winter, and you can ski on the mountains and that sort of stuff. But where we're here, it's just the coldest it got was 48 degrees, and that's why I'm wearing a parka. But in the summertime, yeah, subtropics. But in the summertime, we have 95% humidity here, and easily doesn't get that hot because of the rain. But yeah, you'll get 95, 98 degree days, with 95% humidity. It's tough. You put the air conditioner on just to suck the humidity out of the air. Stuff molds here like crazy. I used to have VHS tapes. They all got moldy. They were all gone. I mean, it just ruins it. I had, when I first got here, there are these 100 megabyte tapes that you use for your computer, the Jazz drive. Don't know if you remember the Jazz drive. I had tons. Oh yeah, humidity makes everything stick. These Jazz drives, I had tons of information, documents, photos, and everything else. A year and a half, and I couldn't use the drive anymore. The drive was rusted, and the cards themselves had mildew inside of it. It's really humid here. My comic book collection I left with my dad in Mexico, so I wouldn't lose it down here, because imagine they would have been moldy already. And I've got some pristine comics, let me tell you. That was the thing when I was in college. So,
never heard of them.
Comic books. Oh yeah, that's from last millennia.
No, I know the classics, but
it's bordering on Stone Age.
I think they're getting a rise again. I think they're definitely coming back. A lot of the kids are into superheroes again. I think all of that's coming back.
But I don't think it's going to be the physical comic books of actually reading them and sharing them with your friends. And
it'll be digital images on a tablet. You're not going to be able to flip the pages and trade them and collect them. But they'll probably, I feel like they'll do it like records. We even brought records back. We have vinyls. We still make new vinyl.
I had a collection of vinyls, and little by little they disappeared. Some people found some they liked, and that was gone. And so whatever. My father also tells me not to really be holding on to those things, but those are memories, and those are ways of doing things that I kind of miss. Yeah, the 70s were.
My daughter's got a record player. There's something to it. Just hearing it come out of that, it's different than the speakers. Yeah, we have. She's got a lot of Michael Jackson. She's into the Queen, and a lot of old classic rock. That's her thing. I was like, I can't knock the style. I appreciate it. I like I like that she doesn't just listen to modern. She's got a lot of modern stuff.
You're raising her well. Congratulations.
I mean, that's her own doing. I mean, only she can take interest in those things. I feel like if Dad pushes it on them, then they're not interested in it.
I haven't tried to push it, but there's also something called genetics.
Yeah.
And they also mirror when they're extremely young, which means that they absorb the reality that they see that you are giving them, and that is their perception of what the universe is. The first 2 years of the development of the human brain are focused on what is reality, what am I dealing with, what did I materialize into this time, and you're trying to figure it out. And so you figure out the relative things. You're figuring out where your balance is. You're figuring out how far distances is. You're trying to figure out how your eyes work and how these funky little things that, I can grab things, but how do I grab that? And your motor skills, it's all the programming in the brain to where you're saying, okay, this is the universe that I have. And studies have also proven that if you raise kids in a hectic environment, their brain develops faster because it says, oh shit, I need a lot more of this in order to deal with all of this. But at the same time, that counterbalances an emotional level that they need with stability. Even if he was in the stomach, when they're in the belly, they'll absorb all of that. Okay, and so we feed them through so many different ways. We feed them culturally. We feed them through the lessons. We feed them through the actions that we do, through the things that they see. They learn from 3 to 4 what love is by knowing whenever they've got problems, who comes to help them and save them. They form their basis as adults to figure out how they're going to treat people in love by how those who are supposed to love them treated them when they were small and needy and everything else. So if they were beaten as children, they'll have a tendency to beat as adults, because that's the reality that they were programmed to understand that was. And so we got to be very careful, especially with the kids, because that mental programming has very long-lasting effects, because they really don't have their own. They have their own personality from the time they're born. You can, with my 2 boys, I can tell. I mean, but they have no conscious sense of, this is what I'm going to do, and objectives, and they start working things out until they're about 5 or 6 years old. They come into their own idea because they know what love is. They know what the universe is like. They know what they have to do, and they're starting to learn in school, and they've socialized, and they've got this thing figured out. And so they go on, and they start their trial of freedom. Then they learn, oh, these are things that I want to be. I want to be a hero. I want to be a fireman. I want to be a police officer. I want to be those are the things that they set up in their life as trophies of things that they want to be, they want to achieve. Then they get into teenage years and they realize that no, life's not exactly like that, and everybody's against them. They get into the negative mode. It's also the programming of, I know what I want. Now I need to eliminate the things that I don't want. And so they focus on all the negative things because people are telling them at that point what they need to stop doing or what they need to improve and everything else. And so it's all that negativity as well. But teenagers, the reason we don't like them is because they'll see the negative in absolutely everything, because that's what their mind is focusing on at that time. Because what their consciousness is trying to understand is, what is it that I don't want? I know I saw that. I didn't like that. I don't want that. I don't want that either because I saw that and yuck. So we get our cancel culture and ideology sort of from that, but that's only a part.
I also think it's that teenage mind in general, because
it's that rebelliousness. I don't want to be my parents.
It's the rebelliousness, plus they don't realize that the media and the advertising are already a step ahead of them, and they play into the system that they want them to fall into, and they just think they're ahead of it because every kid knows everything until he doesn't. I mean, I think it takes adulthood it's not a set age, but it takes adulthood to realize that you don't know everything. You're not invincible.
25 years of age is when the frontal cortex finishes developing, which is one of the reasons why your interest rates drop at that point, which is why, they usually turn out just like this. The fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. So, we will be judged by our fruit. yeah, life is funny that way. So anyway, lost my train of thought. Sorry. We were talking about the teenagers and the development of what our perception is, and our social identity and everything else comes from that as well. At that point, we start getting more socially integrated and everything else. Then we go off to college and we don't have the parental do this, don't do that. And you're free, and you find out what it's like to actually not wash the dishes for 3 months and see science experiments in the bottom of your sink. You learn certain things when but those are also the learning processes, and that what makes them pain in the ass adults.
Oh yeah, those are the life experiences that they have to go to. I mean,
everybody
college,
goes through.
Every college freshman thinks they can eat ramen every day until they try to do it. I mean, and then they realize breakfast, lunch, and dinner of ramen doesn't really suit you. You don't know until you're buying your own food and supplying your own food and having to do the whole thing outside of the bubble. And even the college life is the bubble. It's just a different bubble.
I used to raid those $3 all-you-can-eat pizza places. Ooh, that was my go-to spot, man.
Now they got the $5 pizzas from Little Caesars all day. That's the popular one now.
Remind me again what the leading cause of death in the United States is.
Probably obesity or
cancer. Well, that's the cause of most of them. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. But now my wife actually pointed out the other day a statistic that I wasn't aware of. She says that Mexico is more obese than what the United States is. So the U.S. now is the second most obese country in the world. Wow. Mexico being number 1.
Woohoo! Moving down in the world.
Oh yeah, chemistry is yeah. Pharmakia. Lots of things can be done with pharmakia. Definitely, chemistry sets.
I think it shows the deterioration of either the common sense in kids or what that I don't remember what comedian it was that said it, but I had a wood burning kit when I was a child. And the cord on them was literally this long. So you were like right next to the outlet, right next to the drapes. And we were able to use a wood burning kit and like carve into wood and all this stuff. That stuff got really hot. We weren't burning ourselves or burning down the house I don't know. I feel like that stuff that they used to give out to kids wasn't baby proofed. And now it's gotten more and more, bubble wrapped.
Well, there's a comedian on Facebook that's dry bar comedy thing, and so he's.
I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah, bald white guy with glasses.
Yeah, and so
yeah.
he makes
good.
That exact same joke. He's fucking hilarious, but he makes that exact same joke. Said, yeah, we played with rockets and bottles and everything else, and what do we get? The dumb kids died. It's called evolution, I guess. Yes. Yeah. Easy bake ovens really did bake. I used to use my aunt's easy bake oven. That light bulb really made those cupcakes grow, but you had to have patience, definitely. Yeah, I would sleep in my back. Well, that's another story that's actually comparing recent. I used to travel from Oklahoma City to Mexico City, and we had a Lincoln town car. And so the back seat of the Lincoln is, it's a small car, right? So the back seat, I would just lie down, and sometimes I'd be running across the seat and everything else. I mean, it's a 12-hour days, 3-day drive, and so you can't just sit there in one place. You're going to get boils. You got to move around and do stuff, especially as a kid. So I did that. That's how I did it. Now, my dad, 2 years ago, he went up to the States, took his family and everything else, visiting grandparents and everything else for Christmas and whatnot. And when he was going back, the cops pulled him over because he had Mexican license plates. He was heading back home anyway, but still they pulled him over. And then the cop puts the flashlight in the back seat and he says, "What's going on there?" "Well, my son's asleep." "Yeah, but he doesn't have a seatbelt on." "Yeah, because he's asleep. It's 9:30 at night. The little guy got tired." "Well, I'm going to have to write you a ticket because he doesn't have a seatbelt on." What universe are we living in now? to where the things that were normal, yes, they're dangerous, but you can't protect people from themselves. You can educate them, you can steer them, you can tell them, look, I don't recommend that because, that usually doesn't have good consequences. However, we can't control them. We still should have free will, even the free will to be stupid. I mean, seriously, that has to be in the options. Otherwise, we're all robots. And we can't get past the programming because the programming is all we're allowed to follow. And that is a sad world to live in.
Yeah.
I mean, we all talk about the hive mind. Yeah, the hive mind would work perfectly because you can have one objective. And when everybody's on the same wavelength, man, stuff gets done.
I mean, even when I was younger, I'm not as old as most people, but at the same time, when I was younger, we had a long station wagon, and they'd pack all 4 kids in the back. We had that big latch door on the back. There wasn't like seat belts.
Sometimes you had your back to the street, and you were looking at the car in front of you. And I remember that too. Continue. Sorry.
Oh no, I'm just giving an example. Like not even going back that far. We weren't worried about seat belts, and it's gotten pretty strict now. I don't know. But then again, our cars are made out of fiberglass now and not the stainless steel that they were before. I feel sometimes like if my old El Camino that I had was to crash into any modern car, it would go right through it like butter.
Oh, mass. Yeah. Now, there are various reasons why these cars are built to self-destruct. Literally, they are. You got a warranty for a couple of years, and after that warranty, the car, especially if it's met a winter in the Northeast, that car ain't going to go past 5 years. That salt does stuff. It gets into places that you just can't get out. But yeah, it's got a lifespan. But they also do that, and they've been doing that for a century and a half, at least 2 centuries, which is you have to allow things to wear out. Otherwise, your industry dies out. You have to continue generating the demand. Otherwise, production won't continue. And production is what generates jobs. And that's what keeps people's food on the table. And you got economies going and cities growing because your light bulb doesn't last for 85 years. It lasts for 6 months, maybe 2 years, depending how much you use it. And that's all by design, because they need to continue working. So are there good things to that? Yeah, we all get more jobs. Are bad things to that? Yeah, things freaking suck and they break all the damn time. And it's cheaper to buy something new than actually fix something that you have, which means that you're constantly throwing stuff away. And we've got a continent floating in the middle of the Pacific of all the plastic that we've been throwing away for God knows how long now. I mean, it's bigger than Texas, man. That thing's scary. And it's all our plastic. There's a vortex in the Pacific somewhere. I need to see that. But planned obsolescence. Obsolescence. Yeah, that's exactly it. Planned obsolescence. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it's about. But the problem is that it has long-term effects and it's not good for the consumer. But then again, what was good for the consumer was exporting all our manufacturing jobs to China because it's cheaper and we can buy more crap. But then what happens when there are no jobs here because they're all over there? And what happens when the majority of the world is trading with China and not trading with us? Who then is getting everybody's money because you're working? That's the whole point. You got to produce. If you don't produce, what are you going to expect in return?
Yeah,
we can't be a services-based industry for everything. Somebody has to sustain the services. Somebody's got to have the money for the lawyer and the shrink and the accountant and the HR person and you got to pay your benefits, and somebody's got to do that. Who's going to be producing it? They got to make something that people are going to buy in order to do that. But if we aren't producing anything, it already has. But some things from Fukushima showed up on Alaskan shores, and they made it down to California as well. Yeah, which is Mud Rabbit. That's why I started my channel, Peña Perspective. And all the things that I put on my Facebook is exactly that. My entire essence of existence is because I wanted to do something different. God, I wish you guys could actually see that. But if you see some of my videos that are on during the day, yeah, I didn't want to live like everybody else. Now just because of that, I'm not living like everybody else, and everybody else is looking at me like I'm nuts. Yeah, there.
You don't have to fit the mold. You don't have to fit the mold to make your path.
Each one's got his own, and there are no real molds because, like somebody was saying, what the fuck is normal? It's an average that nobody fits into. Nobody is normal, right? But then we get into the whole religious thing, and nobody is above anybody else, and that sort of thing as well. So, yeah, each one has his own path. The only one that we're responsible for is us. However, we just can't be in detriment to others, but people have expectations of what they would like future and reality to see. The black sheep is usually the one booted out, right? But we usually know where the wolf is. Yeah, that's it. The black sheep survives for a reason, because that bitch survives, man.
So what topics do you want to dive into tonight? We got a few we can still put on the table that we've already talked about, or some new ones. What in modern? You said there was something going on currently that you wanted to talk about besides Jeff Bezos. I don't want to talk about him.
Oh, the big phallic symbol that shot him, just a little bit shorter than what he needed to. Because, if he would have gone a little bit further, it would have been no problem to continue going. Once you get into that microgravity area, you need very little energy to keep you going on your way.
Well, that's why, that's why his craft is a good idea, is because you do this launching thing where you have planes take you to a certain point, and then you launch from a high altitude. You're not taking off from the ground and using all that propulsion to get away from the Earth's gravity. It's
a pussy way of doing it.
It's a smart way of doing it. We got to find a way. If we're gonna you
gotta shove the rocket and the thrust and the energy.
Tim the Toolman Taylor over here.
More power. I love that guy.
But no, I mean, if we're gonna go about it this barbaric way of using fuel to propel us.
That's going to change. First of all, once we get into the 0 point energy and they actually release some of that information, the problem is that they're going to be the ones that have it. Yeah, he did, and he should have rammed it up his own. But anyway, because that's what he's doing to all his employees for so freaking long. But anyway, it's symbolic. They all mirror everything. But anyway, the most efficient way to get up there would actually be the elevator. You've got is basically a satellite in stationary orbit, and then you link it, very thick fiber, and then, the concrete booted to the ground, and then you elevator from full gravity to microgravity, and you can use electromagnetic forces to push the elevator along its way. So there are sustainable ways to make sure that we can get out there without having to go more chemistry, more explosions. I like fire.
We'd have to think. So this brings me back to, I feel like I'm talking to Mark right now, because these are some of the things that we talked about. So he had this idea, one of the ideas that he used a lot in some of his examples was this magnetic coil where something would pass through it and it would speed up over time. It's like a maglev system, or the things that they're.
It goes a little bit beyond that. It's whenever you understand electromagnetism,
but it's the same idea as it keeps getting propelled.
Yeah. What happens is it's called the right-hand rule, to where whenever you've got the magnetic force spinning in this direction, it's going to generate an electric current and force in that direction. So if you can get things spinning, the electromagnetic waves spinning in a certain way, then it will generate a thrust in a certain direction because it's pushing electricity particles out in that direction. So that constant and an ion motor kind of works that way too. But what he's talking about is a lot more efficient because you're just making the electric
and that's where he
field
takes it to the next step. The only reason we couldn't do the magnet thing right now with elevators and stuff like that, I would say the biggest thing is inertia. How do you stop it at the
because
end without
that's
smashing the human body?
Yeah, but that's exactly the thing that we don't understand whenever we don't understand the alien craft that have reached here.
And I think, and that's where, so I just want to reference Mark. I think Mark knows the answer to these things. He goes, he has an idea for how you can create a field.
I hope he knows. I mean, he's a lot more intelligent than I am from what I've seen.
If you get a chance, if you get a chance, check out his podcast. He answers two of the questions you just asked. He answers how UFO crafts are propelled and moved, and then how to generate a force field to make it so that you were to not feel the inertial impact of traveling at the speeds that they're traveling at.
Well, whenever we're talking about inertial impacts, we're actually talking about the gravitational effect on mass. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, what these craft are doing is they're creating their own gravitational well, because they're using the energy source in the middle to break into 0 point, create this energy field to where it doesn't even have to get to that point. Sorry, they're using element 105 from what they were talking about. So there are lots of different ways of doing it. Okay. And so what they're doing is they create this gravity well to where you don't feel anything because your inertia is zero. You're not moving. What's moving is that bubble. And that the way they make that bubble move is because they make gravity stronger here and gravity lighter here. Okay, they'll make a big bubble of gravity back here and a smaller bubble of gravity here, so it pushes you in that direction. And so you move, and you can move in any direction, and you don't feel it because your inertial mass actually didn't move within your gravitational quantum field. So you don't feel those things, which is why you can do right-hand turns or 90-degree turns, and you're just sitting there watching a movie going, oh, wow, everything's going by so quick. But anyway, that's my concept of how they do it. I've never done it, so I'm talking up my ass.
Same. I've never done it, and I don't want to quote Mark. I don't want to misquote Mark, so I won't continue.
But theoretically,
I just want to reference. I just want everybody that happens to see this to go to Mark's video, and he does really explain this and the concepts behind it. Some of the stuff is supported by what you say as well. But he has a different way of explaining it that is beyond my comprehension of reiterating it properly without having it directly for a reference. And like I said, Mark's a really smart guy.
But that was in that interview that you gave, right? So it's just watching that interview again, which I'm in the middle of. I haven't finished, but that's a lot of interesting stuff that he puts out there, definitely. And there are things that I want to be able to discuss and talk about because there are some divergences to where we can understand the difference of why that difference is. There were divergences in the perception of reality between Niels Bohr and Albert Einstein. They didn't agree on what it was. They didn't agree the same way that Plato and Aristotle didn't agree on the basic concept of what this universe was.
Mark talked about the disagreement between Einstein and Boris, and it was like, what was the glue in the equation? And he goes,
that was
Einstein
the thing
didn't know about quartz.
Yep, the gluons. Yeah, but we've kind of found the gluons. And that's there are some divergences there, and I respect everybody's got their own.
I think he says
anything, but I'm curious to know so we can work, because those are questions that I'm also looking into and studying and very, very curious about as well.
Let me I'm gonna give us a reference, but go ahead. I'm just gonna tell you some of the questions he answered for me, because he had some amazing questions, and that'll get people an aspect. I have
to go watch that interview. You ought to actually link that at the end of this video whenever you're editing it. You can actually.
I can attach it to
pop up on the YouTube. Yeah.
I usually link our last perspective video, our regular Thursday one, just to kind of keep them all grouped together. I don't try to steal the playlist, you know?
Oh, speaking of which, on mine, I edited it. It started off with a musical playlist. I actually put my favorites for the book up on top, which is the videos that I source for some of the deeper comprehension or understanding of the things that I want to put into my book, which a lot of it also has to do with the understanding of the quantum field. You also have psychological references in there. You got anthropological references in there. There's videos by Graham Hancock and Wilcock on there as well, because it's all about a deeper understanding of what this reality is. And the best way for us to live and deal with this reality is by understanding what it actually is. And whenever we get into a very Cartesian or mechanical sense of what the universe is, we get away from the deeper fundamentals of, for example, consciousness. I mean, science still hasn't been able to figure out where consciousness is. They're assuming that it's hidden somewhere in the brain, that just like sight, there's no place in the brain to where an image is put together and the BMP is sent to the brain for analysis. No, there's no point in the brain where there's an image from one eye, there's an image from the other eye, there are resonances, parts of it go into different parts of the brain, and no place is it put together into one big idea, but yet all those different parts of the brain, your brain understands it as one image that we're seeing. Dr. Bruce Lipton is one of some of the videos that are in there about him. Fantastic guy. He used to study the cell structure, the nucleus of cell structures. And he was focused on, one of the things that he taught me was pH of the body is very important, because the cells don't have a brain. They don't think. They're not taking orders from somebody. So how do they move? How do they do what it's all programmed DNA. Yep. How does that work? And what he found out is the pH levels of the blood affect what parts of the DNA are activated and which parts are not. Okay, so it's going to activate depending on the environment in which it's in. And so he also found that in a more acidic environment, they tend to defend themselves, crouch and clump. It's what we get in the blood clots, for example, which are a big problem in the news recently. And that's when all the cells go into a defensive structure. But that is also where cancer cells are formed. And anytime that you see diseased blood, you have a tendency of seeing how they're clumped, malformed, and there's no flow of energy and of fluids and anything in and around. Because when they're all in each individual and things are able to flow around them, they're able to absorb better, they're able to grow better. And that when the pH is...
I thought cancer cells were abnormal cells spreading in the body.
Yeah, but they start... All these cells that we see deformed this way are abnormal cells. And there are lots of things cancer is created in the body on a constant basis, but up until a certain age, we're able to fight off those cancer cells because our immune system is stronger than what they are. Okay, there is a point to where the immune system isn't as big, and the cancer, and there's some scientists, and I'm not a doctor, and I can't say shit, and this might be problematic, but some had mentioned that the possibility, there's a hypothesis, there's a theory being put out there, it was put out there. I haven't been able to find all Italian doctors' videos. However, it's a type of, that's after it's already been opened up. The Italian doctor was using the hypothesis that they're fungi. And what happens is he used the image of an ant. There's a certain type of ant that eats a kind of mold that generates a fungus in their stomach, and it starts to expand. And the ant goes nuts in the mold, and the fungus ends up growing and encompassing and completely obliterating the ant. When that happens in our body, we usually have antibody cells that go around it and try and contain it. But it continues to grow and takes over those antibody cells and continues to grow. So you get more cells trying to contain it. So on that idea, the tumor is actually the body trying to defend against the fungus that's growing. And fungus grows in acidic environments. So the less acidic your body is, the healthier it can be by these hypotheses that these doctors have brought up. It's just something that I happen to find interesting. Again, this is not medical advice. I'm not a doctor, so it's just my perspective. It's sad that we actually have to do that every time nowadays. You know,
No, I know.
where are we living in where we can't just talk and share ideas and say what we think? I mean, anyway, it's the third millennia, right? And some would posit, a third conflict on a global scale. However you want to term that. We're in scary times. However, peritoneum. Yeah, because rogue. Yeah, see, well, that's not new. That's what happens. Another idea, a different doctor that had a different idea was actually mentioning that when they actually do the biopsy and start to cut it out, they actually liberate some of that into the body. They don't actually take it all out. And so if they actually cut it, they're actually breaking the cover that's trying to protect that nucleus of the thing. And so when they cut it, they actually liberate some of that nucleus that spreads out. So when they're doing the biopsy, they're actually aiding in the spreading of this. And see, that's another thing. Whenever we're radiating the body, I mean, we use chemicals and radiation in different ways to try and destroy those types of cells, but we destroy other things along with it. And so what my sister-in-law passed away, it's going to be a year now in November. After 5 long years of battling liver cancer. And it went away and it came back and it went away and it came back. And each time it got worse and it got into deeper areas of the body. In the end, it was in her bone marrow. You know, at that point, there's not much you can do. I mean, it's going to spread. All new blood is generated in the bone marrow. So if the bone marrow is contaminated with that, then all your new blood is also going to be contaminated with that, unfortunately. So there's lots of hypotheses about it, but they're not running after the real cure because they're really satisfied with the current treatment system that puts people in debt because it's $80,000. My aunt had cancer in I think it was the blood, if I'm not mistaken. God, it's been almost 15 years ago, but she was like a year away from paying off her house. It had been a 30-year mortgage and she was finally paying it off. Well, she had to remortgage her house just to pay for the treatment. Okay. And she still got the stent right over here to where, you know, the stuff was put directly into her bloodstream. We shouldn't have to indebt ourselves to these people that believe that they're saving, because 50% of them don't make it. And some would actually say they died from the treatment more than what they did from the disease. And so when we get to that point, who's really looking for a cure? You know, a lot of these medicines that are coming out, but this is a chronic disease. It's going to be with you forever. We're just treating the symptoms. We never try and find out what the origin of the disease is, so you can treat the origins instead of the symptoms. Otherwise, you're always putting out fires and you're never actually curing the main problem. And in some circles, and these are more way out there, that's all about where your consciousness is. If you have too much hate or anger or envy of other people, that negative energy inside your brain, inside your consciousness, becomes metastasized in your body. So it's so many years of just being envious of other people, or just, you know, talking about those people, or just being just time after time after time, that does bad stuff to your body. Why? Because it's just bad energy going in there. You're feeding it bad energy, and that's going to come out somehow, somewhere. That's also just my idea too. It could all be hokum. I don't know, but how many people really do? And how much of what people know is actually fed to them, and have they actually studied it to go deeper? And that's the thing. I never trusted what people told me. So I studied it on my own. I read the literature. I read the books. I read the studies, you know, and the peer-reviewed papers and everything else. I did my due diligence and my research so that I would know And I wouldn't depend on somebody else's opinion to guide myself. I mean, when we're kids, yeah, we depend on our parents' opinion because we hope they know more than we do. Our grandparents' opinion really works because they should know more than both of them. Not always the case. But like I say in one of my videos, I had questions that the adults didn't want to or didn't have the time or didn't know how to answer. And so I went after the questions myself. I went after the answers myself. Now, what is the benefit of all this knowledge? I have no idea. You know, I'm not driving a Ferrari. I don't have a yacht. I don't have 5 houses spread around the world. No. But there are things that I'm thinking maybe other people had the questions for, but they didn't have the time or haven't done that yet to run after the answers. Some of them I've found. Yeah. That's unfortunately a reality for so many people, because the things we do are dangerous to us, and we don't know the long-term ramifications. In the majority of those cases, they don't care, because if they don't feel the effects in the first 5 years, well, fuck it, it's an accounting blip, you know.
I've been in landscaping for over 15 years. When I first got into it, I was 100% against handling any of the spray treatments that they had made, because I knew the technology hadn't come up with, you know, a sufficient way of doing it yet. They were still using such deadly chemicals that you didn't want them on your skin. You couldn't have them near you.
My dad used to use Roundup all the damn time. I'm lucky I have kids.
It's probably true.
Roundup is nothing to play with. My dad loved that shit. He used it all the damn time. So what do you use now? You don't use gloves anymore?
No, I use gloves and stuff now, but now I feel like there's been so many lawsuits. There's been so many actual like mandatory advances in science where people had to have this safety guard where they're like, we can't be killing people or we're not going to be able to do this anymore. I mean,
yep. So another question is, where's that safety guard? Well, congratulations. That's awesome. Do you have chickens or something? Because you'd have to fertilize it somehow. Some people use rabbits as well. I don't. I just have birds. But still, that's a good way to be. Yeah. There's also a problem with GMOs because they can infect other crops. So your neighbor, you're a farmer, let's say, and you try and do natural organic corn because you want to be able to sell it at a higher price. And your neighbor, well, no, he wants, you know, the higher quantity and everything else, so he's going to go with a GMO. Well, the problem is that the GMO doesn't stay just where the GMO is supposed to stay. It'll infect your corn as well, and some of your corn will end up having it.
Yes, runoff is a real thing.
Oh, that's one of the, oh, God. Runoff causes the dead zones in the oceans, in the rivers, because all of that fertilizer that goes into the ocean that basically eliminates the oxygen in the water, and the fish die in that water. They're in the water, but they can't breathe because there's no oxygen in the water. And we see that around Louisiana, where the Mississippi goes out into the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, you'll see there's a big area around there where you don't have many fish. Why?
Well, I bet Mud Rabbit deals with the same thing. I bet they have signs all over that say don't dump in the sewers because this goes into our water system.
And that goes directly out to the ocean.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just pumping them out.
It doesn't go into a sewage system and get treated. It's going right out into the water, so you can't dump just anything in there.
Yeah, they do. Fruits and tomatoes, freaking awesome. Heritage, you've got a wise family, Mud Rabbit. Definitely. I mean, those were things that were handed down from generation to generation. That's awesome. She composts. That's good. That's a lot of work. That is a lot of work. Yeah, absolutely. There's you got access to water. That's always a good thing. Here we've got lots of water, and that's something my dad used to tell me in the 80s, that the next wars are going to be fought over water, and he wasn't wrong. He usually isn't. My dad's a lot wiser than I am, and he had a conversation with me today that kind of put me in my place as well. But I still won't admit it because I've got my own way of doing things, you know. But still, maybe I'm as stubborn as he is, but or we get that way with age. I'm not sure which one. Still, but yeah, we need to focus on water, on growth, on having food close by. Why? Because we can't be dependent on a larger system to maintain us. And that's what the big cities are fed on, and that's what they start to believe. The system is going to take care of them. So they don't have to worry about their own things. They can focus on that one singular thing that they do well, and that's the way they make their living. They do that one thing, and nothing else really matters. They become dependent on the system. And so when the system tells them to jump, they need to jump. Otherwise, they won't get that pellet, and they need the pellet. My situation was different. I was raised in two different cultures at the same time. And so I could see the two different paradigms and the two different programs that their government, that their TV systems and everything else are trying to feed into them. I saw the differences in cultural realities, cultural mores and customs and everything else. And, you know, I had this idea of moral relativism from a very young age, because what's right, what's true, when everybody has their own opinion, but they're all right. That would be called Gaia, right, Mud Rabbit?
Mother Nature, Gaia, whatever you want to call it, whatever your depiction happens to be. But yes, I think it's an entity.
But on many levels, it is sentient. I mean, what do you define as sentience? Because like I told you, plants can feel, they feel apprehensive when someone comes in who has pruned them before. They also have memory. Mm-hmm. If you cause the plant pain, they scream chemically the instant that you do it. But beyond that, whenever that same person that caused them pain walks into the room, they automatically let out another chemical yelp. It's not as strong, but it's similar. It's sort of like, hey, they're back. Let's see if he hurts me again. Plants can do that. There's studies that have proven this. It's not me saying it. I mean, yeah, it's me saying it. But yeah, there's lots of studies that have been proven this, and it blew me away whenever they said it. Plants, well, yeah, they it's a resonance, because in reality, and this is something that I want to be able to put into the lecture. One time they asked Albert Einstein what it felt like to be the most intelligent man on Earth. Because Albert Einstein was respected by everybody, right? Albert Einstein's answer was, I don't know, you would have to ask Nikola Tesla. So he even recognized that point. Then Einstein is recognized, he got his Nobel for photoelectric effect, right? So it's proving the photon, that light is both particles and waves. That's what he got his Nobel Prize for. But he's known for an equation called E equals mc squared. So energy is the same as mass accelerated at the speed of light squared, right? And whenever they showed that equation to Tesla, and they asked him what his thoughts on Mr. Einstein's fantastic equation, he said, yeah, it's pretty, it works. The only problem is that he considers energy as the unknown and mass as a known. And in reality, what the unknown variable is mass. And so that particular phrase from that interview fed me for a couple of years, just analyzing it. What do you mean, what is mass? Mass is this tangible stuff, the stuff that we feel. Energy is that woo-woo stuff that we're trying to measure, trying to figure out. Mass, we know it's big, it's inertia and everything else. But no, the way Tesla viewed the world, the universe, it was different. To him, all times existed at the same time. Why? Because he built an experiment that allowed him to be in the present, past, and future at the same time. It almost drove him nuts. In fact, this I've mentioned in one of my videos, but I think it's in Portuguese, so you guys might not have caught that. And so what happens is that he viewed the energy, the universe as energy, an energetic and energy universe. And what he was trying to figure out is how mass became mass. Because we see it, we know what it is, but the way his understanding of what the energetic universe and the vibrations of the quantum field we recognize now, that was the essence, and that's why he could understand, the 0-point gravity and the energy from the 0-point field, right? Because he could understand that level of reality. And so his big question was mass. And so I took that question, and I took Einstein's equation, and I made mass as the unknown, and I altered the equation. Basically, what you have is energy slowed down. And that takes you down all kinds of things that explains a whole lot. Because it also includes the vibrations of the quantum field within that mass structure, because it's just built up on lots of different things. System built up upon system, built up upon system, built up upon systems. Yeah, there you go, mysterious realms. Well, holy shit, we got a conversation right there in question number 1. That's UFOs, yeah, mechanical experts, automotive, subatomic particles. There you go. Yeah, because you actually don't do it on a physical. But anyway, that's cool.
These are
I know
some of the questions we went over on the podcast. That's why I say this is Mark, and he's talking about all the same things that we were talking about, but he's got a lot of good answers. He's got an answer for how to fix global warming. He's got an answer for how to stop hurricanes. He's got an answer for what's it called? Transportation.
Yep.
Oh man, there's quite a bit of answers he might have for us.
Definitely. I mean, he's a guy that would, because you notice these are the topics that I talk about. Now, I'm not a physicist. He is a physicist, and he has been focused on these things specifically. I'm not.
I don't know if he's a physicist or what he classifies himself as, but yes, he seems to be diving into this a lot deeper than we have at this point, at least.
Well, here on this, I've been diving into this really fucking deep for a long time. The things that I've read and heard are things similar too. I just don't do the math equations anymore. Why? Because there's a lot of work if you can visualize it, the end result. For example, math is meant to be able to calculate what, like the Fibonacci sequence, the spins of the coral, of the shells and that sort of stuff. It's to represent reality. But if I don't know if you've seen Good Will Hunting. There was a scene in there to where he was describing a formula at MIT. He was the janitor at MIT, and everybody was trying to write out all these, formulas using Newton's calculus equations and everything else. And he went up there and he drew sort of like a diagram, to where each one of the balls ended up representing another function and another one of those calculations. So he ended up doing a beautiful diagram that encompassed all of those mathematical equations within them. And he was able to show it more clearly, having them as sub-functions within a larger functioning equation, right? So sometimes we can see math visually and find and kind of have an idea of where it's going. Now, to confirm that, we do the actual calculations to find out if, does the glass crack at 65 miles an hour or 6 miles an hour? There's a difference, and so that's what engineers do. They make those calculations to find out that, we're going to put the rebar in for 3/4 because it's going to be, it's going to have to support a lot more weight. So, because of that, we're going to put more reinforced rebar in the middle, and, the concrete has to be these certain specifications, and all of that is calculated out, and you can do that. And it has been done for a very long time. Question is, I usually like thinking outside the box. I just don't know if I'm so far outside the box that I'm still trying to figure that out.
I'm missing your audio right now.
Maybe I was just talking too low.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I got it now.
Okay. Yeah, I was starting to mumble, and when I get into those points, it just sort of kind of dies off. So yeah, microphone, film, camera presence, got to maintain that the entire time. You're right.
Have you heard of these? I don't know if I had heard of them. Singing trees. I definitely haven't.
There are different kinds of trees that make sounds when the wind blows through them. There are willows, there are reeds, there are different ones that can actually emit sounds that are similar to singing and organs and that sort of thing. However, I think she's referencing something a little bit different, and I'm curious to know more about that. I've heard singing crickets to where somebody slowed down they taped crickets, right? Cricket, cricket, cricket that we hear in springtime in the U.S. all the time, right? They taped those crickets and then they slowed it down, like way down. And it sounded like a choir singing and an orchestra behind them playing a myriad of instruments. It was absolutely incredible. But I'm curious to know more about the singing trees because I'm not sure exactly what it is that she's referencing. There are some reeds in the bayou and in Florida to where the wind will be blowing over the reeds, and the reeds, they're like flutes. Of Denmark. Really? Interesting. Now that is new. That's good information. Thank you, Mud Rabbit. Appreciate it. The singing trees of Denmark. Now,
all kinds of different singing trees. Seems to be a bunch of different ones.
Singing trees with what? Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, but then you got the guitar playing singing tree. Yeah, okay. Yeah, now that augmented organism, that I can understand. These trees talk to each other through their root system, and it's not the roots talking to the roots of the other trees, it's the fungus that does the communication between the root systems, and they let each other know what their neighboring tree needs. And the tree will put those things closer to where the fungus is. The fungus will take it and transport it to the tree that is in need. So the trees themselves help maintain trees that are the tree making music. All right, so yeah, that one I don't know. Seriously? Now I would love to see that experiment. I don't doubt it's possible. I mean, the world that we live is absolutely incredible. I mean, we know that water has memory. We know that water can be affected by conscious thought or words. Different vibrations into the water can actually make
I was just thinking about the vibrations with like sand or something like that, how you can get the patterns out of it depending on what resonance you're using.
And you'll also notice that those patterns that you get from the different frequency levels, the patterns that you get from the sand on that vibrating disc that you're talking about, those images created by that are similar to images that are seen in cave drawings from thousands of years ago. Some of those symbols are also in Egyptian hieroglyphs. Some of those symbols are also in some of the stuff in Pumapunku in Peru down here as well. So we're not the first ones discovering this, and these have deeper meaning. The resonance of the universe itself is what I'm trying to get people to understand. The material world that we think it is isn't. Because Tesla was actually right.
I've always thought that was the purpose of Stonehenge, is to create some kind of sound resonance in a circle and reflect it back, because they've done a lot of studies with bouncing sound off inside of Stonehenge, and the way it reverbs back is duly noted to be something of significance. They just don't know if that was also the purpose, because causality isn't necessarily, related to what the purpose was. You might be able to get something out of the sound, but that doesn't necessarily determine that that's the purpose of what it was built for. But they just make sure to note that in science, that you can get this very strange sound.
That's important to note. That's important to note, because that is important, actually. The vibrations aren't. But You interviewed a guy. We were talking another Mike, the guy who had the light behind him the whole
Yeah,
time. I think.
that was Mike Walker. He had a vision, or yeah, he had a vision about Stonehenge.
And he mentioned that he was able to jump to the top of these stones that are like 12 feet high, right?
Oh yeah,
All right. You remember what I told him? Oh, yeah, it's a gravity well.
sounds like it.
Because the resonance and the formation of them is actually able to have that effect. Now, imagine when that thing was brand new and
Well, it
working
makes
the way it
me.
is
That's
today.
why I assumed the water was running towards it too. As soon as you said that, I associate. Well, maybe that's also why
Well,
the
I was
water
thinking,
was going in that direction. Because I don't think Stonehenge is in like a valley where water would run in that direction. I feel like it would go other ways.
I don't know enough about Stonehenge to actually argue that point
Same.
with you, so I don't know.
No,
Um,
no. I was just going with his story. It made a lot of sense that that might be some kind of gravity well or something like that. I don't know
these
what it.
things are used as portals. For example, there's this guy from South Africa. He created this group and movement called Ubuntu. Right? I don't know if you've heard about it. Michael Salinger, I think the name of this guy. But there were some things that he found um, in South Africa. They were circles. You know, these African circles, and people for many years would call them like pens for animals. There aren't any doors on them. There's no opening for them, and they're round. Then they thought that they were dwellings. There aren't windows, and there aren't. They can't find any, uh, vestiges of beds or cups or something that you would put in your bedroom that would last over time, buried in the mud. Which is what usually happens. So these things were devoid. However, he saw some large stones that were relatively close by that were placed at a certain separation, and they almost looked like those cathodes that they put into the water that have this separation. When you have that separation of a certain size, the resonance between them, you get all kinds of strange reactions and effects that happen. The Casimir effect, for example, is one that I'm thinking about with that. But he saw these stones that were there, and one of the hypotheses that he had was that these were one of the sites where they did the genetic engineering for Adam and Eve. And those stone circles, because those stones were specific stones that were brought from very far away, they were placed there and in that formation, but they were all resonant stones. In other words, they all mirrored that resonance. You would push sound to them and they would mirror that sound back, or they would vibrate with that sound. And so what he was stipulating is that these were energy generators, that because they were circular, they would be creating these vortices of energy. And because they were all together, they were used to power that very large genetic altering machine that they were using for that. That's one of his hypotheses. So, not wanting to toss the baby out with the bathwater, they're interesting ideas, and they're not far from making scientific sense. I mean, we on my video list for favorites for the book on my channel, there's one also that talks about the Sealy system, which is a way you have different varying layers of coils and copper and coils and copper. And the electromagnetic combination of them allows you to filter electrons in a certain way to where actually generating energy from spinning these things around, because the electrons are bled off through them, and it's all working in circles, right? So the same type of idea could have been used by very knowledgeable civilizations in the past to make these structures that today nobody can explain, that Michael Salinger was talking about. Some of these are, hypotheses. What's the use of a hypothesis? You try and find an experiment that can test it and find out if it's true or not. That's science. That's what science is all about. You have an idea, you think you understand how things work, you figure out a way to prove whether or not you're right or wrong. Somebody else's idea, and you're going to try and find a way to prove whether he's right or wrong. And whoever is right more often, you say, well, yeah, I guess his thing works better than his thing, so we're going to start believing in that thing. And that's the way science has worked for a very long time, until recently. Now the results are defined by who pays for the research.
Speculation, of course. I hope that's not the case, but it seems to be in
Um,
some senses.
there's an old adage that says follow the money. So unfortunately, too many things are owned by too few, and so they have a tendency to control and do whatever they want. So the only way out of this is, look, don't be
Bitcoin.
dependent on the system. Bitcoin. Don't be dependent on the system.
I was channeling Michael there.
Well, definitely.
Michael would have added the
That's
only way out of this is Bitcoin.
that's
It's your
every
option.
third. That's every third word. Basically is.
No,
But he.
no, I
But
don't
he.
think it's every third word, but he is a big advocate for it. I've
Absolutely.
always thought he was, and he's almost got me convinced. If I have enough extra money to invest in it, I already know I'm going to be probably too late in the wave, but I see it happening.
Oh man, yeah, Mud Rabbit, you're gonna have to give me that link somehow, somewhere. Or
Let me see if I can find it real quick. I'll look for
I
it for
would
you,
I
Mud
want
Rabbit,
to
and
add
see if
some money.
I don't know copyright what I'm allowed to play, but
Oh, well, thanks, Mud Rabbit. Great
well,
idea,
check it
and
out.
I'll look that into. I didn't know that, so that's awesome. I thank you for the info, Mud Rabbit. Appreciate it.
It'd be
Um,
interesting to see how he dials into the to the tree and is able to harness that sound and play with it. It's interesting to me.
music is about vibrations as well, and so everything's about that. I mean, they say that music soothes the. Um, God, I'm getting old and forgetting things. Music soothes the savage beast. Yeah, something like 5 seconds or something usually was. But no, I just wanted to be able to see the link, be able to see those trees. But if you can find those resonances, yeah, you can communicate with just about everything, because everything in one way, shape, or form is part of the all of the consciousness that made all this holographic reality possible. Um, it's all part of the same. So we recognize the maker in all of creation. That's basically what it is. It's a beautiful thing. And it's a whole lot more complicated and a whole lot more profound than what even in our advanced civilization we've been able to find. The problem is the more advanced our civilization becomes, the less we actually care about the creation itself, because we're more interested in all the stuff that we've created and we think we're so badass. But every time we do something, we don't do it perfect. We don't do it right because we don't know everything. So when we start messing with things that there's no turning back, I mean, there are so many stories of people traveling back in time to be able to get people from this generation because they hadn't screwed up their genetic code yet and they were still able to procreate. So they needed people from this time. So because their time period was going to end because they had done so many experiments that they had done themselves in. Basically, there are lots of movies, books, and everything else that are written on that topic. Why? Because you need to think about it, because it can be real. I mean, there's some things that you don't mess with. For example, the Zika virus down here in Brazil was caused because of the genetically modified mosquitoes that they brought down here to eliminate the dengue. But when they eliminated one, they opened up avenues for another one, which microencephalitis for children is a lot worse than having a really bad fever. Dengue causes a really bad fever and it can be fatal if the brain hemorrhages and swells too much. But getting Zika and having a child with microencephaly, in other words, a shrunken head on the body, I mean, that's some pretty screwed up stuff. And that was kind of the consequence of messing around. They closed one door and opened another. And that's the thing. We don't do things well enough to be able to just do willy-nilly whatever it is we think is a good idea, because there's always something that you just shouldn't mess with. Personally, I'm a fan of my genetic code. It's the result of lots of different generations of people doing certain things to fortify certain traits and abilities throughout a certain lineage. And those genetic codes I value, and I think they're important, and I try and put them on to. Let's listen.
I got to give credit to Tom Wall of the Cosmic Knot and the Cosmic Knot, but I was just going to play a little bit of this tree that he's got his music hooked up to here, or he's harnessing the music from.
Wow.
How many? What's that? How many trees can you just put that up for? Like, I mean, it's like only thing I haven't had work with is desert plants so far.
Wow, that's weird. I don't know if he's playing those towards it. I had to get more context because I don't really.
That would be bizarre. He could be playing the tree.
Wow, that's cool. I think the tree was the piano sound coming in. It sounded like a piano. I could be wrong, but that's awesome.
That could be an interpretation of what it does. But yeah, it's like talking to dolphins. You just have to find the frequency that they're on so you can actually communicate.
Oh yeah, we got it in there.
Yeah, we got that one. Yeah, but it was cool, and we also again the
Thanks
copyright thing. There's time. Yeah, Mud Rabbit, that was fantastic. Thank you, appreciate that. Definitely. Yeah, there's a lot about the universe that we don't know about, and we're playing with fire when we do lots of the alterations but I don't want to get into that topic right now either. There's also things going on in a couple of crucial states and battles of that sort. However, we don't need to get into that one today either. We were talking about your deep pan pizza and how envious I was of your dinner because a deep pan pizza with a Dr. Pepper.
In honor of the fact that you couldn't have any, it's been delivered. It's been sitting in the other room. I'm waiting until after our encounter to enjoy this lovely pizza.
You could actually eat it with me. I could like a Pavlovian dog. I could salivate just from the image of it. You know, that would be okay as well. Yeah, eating on camera isn't exactly the best idea.
Yeah, that's possible.
I have never heard of that name. I would have to actually look that up to know anything about it. But now that you recommend him, Mud Rabbit, then yeah, sure, we should be there. Now, Mud Rabbit, this is interesting. Mud Rabbit followed us over from Erin's show. She's a moderator over on Erin's show, right? But she was over on Red Pills as well.
That's where she met Erin. That's where most people met Erin. But
that's where I met Erin because he called into Red Pill's show, and so that's when I, reached out to Erin and ended up talking to him, and then you and I called into his program, and that's where this whole thing started. So yeah, Mud Rabbit's been around from the very beginning, then, haven't you, Mud Rabbit? You've seen this whole thing just come together. So welcome. Thank you very much for your support. Yeah. How long has Red Pill been up? Because I feel like I've been watching him for 3 years as well. But I loved it when he and Methods were doing stuff together. Now Methods is off on the Foxhole, which is an interesting platform that we could think about as well. But all those are when we involve and we can get. I didn't know when he didn't do news. Although Quarantine with Methods wasn't news. But at that point, it was all news because we were always talking about the things that were going on in the world. And those are things that, people wanted to know about. We were apprehensive. We wanted to know. So, yeah, Red Pills is one of those definite sources. True reporting. Yeah, I saw him whenever, because I was looking for news for a long time, whenever I knew that I couldn't trust them because they're all beating the same drum. And so I started looking for other sources. And among those sources, yeah, Red Pill was among those. True Reporting was also there. I like Just Informed Talk, but yeah, I haven't been on 8chan. I'm not really tech savvy and that sort of stuff, so I avoid some of those things because can be dangerous if you get into a world that you don't know how to deal with and you don't protect yourself adequately. So before you get into those and onion and Tor browsers and that sort of thing, make sure you got a VPN and you know what the hell you're doing before you start playing around with fire. But yeah, those are great sources for information and everything else, because that's what people that are in this medium are kind of doing and getting together. There are some 8chan channels that were pretty useful over the last couple of years as well.
Yeah. Good source of information and horrible information. It's a mixture of both. Hopefully you can weave through it and figure out what's best for you.
Separating the wheat from the tares, my friends. Separating the wheat from the tares.
But don't worry, Mud Driver. We're going to be on. I got another interview coming up later tonight that I'm going to do with Rocco Fowler. He was on the other night, and yeah, I just like his story and want to get him on here and make sure I can hear more of it. So he's going to be doing a show about around 10 o'clock Central Time.
Yeah. This time, hopefully, he'll be able to get his idea out a little bit better than what he was allowed to last time. So,
well, yeah, no, I just think, I mean, there's more there. So hopefully we can get another shot at it and get a little bit more and get it out in the public. That's what I want.
Exactly. Get their story told, because that's the ultimate objective, isn't it, Jake? Yeah, exactly. So many things happening, but at the same time, as Mud Rabbit said, it's a beautiful day. Okay. Yeah, she's on Eastern. That's right. So, yeah, lots of things, but I'm not sure what to focus on at this particular point. Yeah, getting back to Saturday, being able to, through the conscious mind, being able to materialize your dreams and objectives and goals and that sort of thing is part of it. Now, there's some stuff that some people would consider were extremely religious or that sort of thing or whatever. But one of the basis of my book is that we were born here with a destiny, with a reason for being here, and we had a sort of a meeting. I like to say that we sat on God's lap, figuring out what it is that we were supposed to do when we were come here. And then we get here and we forget everything. However, the steps and the pieces for us to put that puzzle back together are there by the Father, who leaves the clues for us to do. And whenever we do his will, he ends up doing things that are, ultimately going to lead us to our ultimate destiny. Why? Because that's the reason why we were here. So when we're doing things in our own will and to detriment of others and everything else, no, we won't necessarily be blessed. The stones of the path aren't going to be raised before our feet, no. But whenever you do the good and you're doing something that's going to be helping others and you're going to be doing something that's beneficial to existence and reality, and it harmonizes with the Father, at that point, yeah, you end up being blessed and things come together in so many strange ways that you couldn't have even predicted. Many times things come out of the woodworks to make things happen for you. And it's bizarre how that happens, but it has a tendency of happening when you put enough focus and energy into a certain objective, and that objective is pure and true. Things of good happen. You're blessed. And so, yeah, that's a natural tendency. We just forget that element of reality, of the importance of our consciousness. Yeah. Yeah, because we're still in the material realm. People haven't gotten out of that because we're not able to elevate to the other densities. And yeah, absolutely. Consciousness. We don't know where consciousness is. But getting back into Dr. Lipton's book, one of the things that he mentioned is that on these cells, there were things that looked like antenna on the outside. He couldn't really figure out what it was, but he understood that the consciousness envelops the body. In reality, the body would be the result of the interference patterns of our consciousness with this holographic reality. So everything's creating interference patterns. And if you understand holograms, you understand that interference patterns create the three-dimensional realities that we perceive in holograms. They're all interference patterns from a two-dimensional piece of film that you put a monochromatic light through one end, the same type of monochromatic light that you use to create the interference pattern, the image. So then you get that light coming through, and the pure light with the interference pattern creates or recreates the object that created the original interference pattern in that screen. So you're able to create those three-dimensional holographic images in that. Yeah, well, auras are that. Some would say that is our, conscious existence, and everything else is a culmination of that. But that's some say the soul is inside the body. I would say that the body is the end result of the soul playing in this three-dimensional reality. But yeah, whenever we talk about other dimensionalities, we have to recognize that those other dimensionalities do exist, and there are entities, beings that have been in those realities for much longer than we have, and they know things that we don't. Dangerous at times because we don't know what their intent. Sometimes we do know what their intent is, but we don't want to admit it.
When it comes to auras, and actually, it's funny. I can revert back to what we were talking about earlier, how mushrooms have a way of communicating that people don't really understand. And yep. I can only read auras when there's a fungus among us. So
they're not reading it. They're screaming at you. I mean, I remember when you don't see them, they're screaming at you. I mean, I remember when people would show up, I wouldn't see their actual faces. I would see green, blue, and red, depending on how beneficial or helpful they would be to me or how dangerous they would be to me. It's really bizarre. That's what I saw of their auras. Yeah, exactly. Which is why hugs are so important. Why? Because it's the combination of the auras saying the resonance is acceptable. Okay, and so you feed off each other's energies, and there have been studies that have found that hugs increase your endocrine levels. They increase your dopamine, which is it's not happiness. Serotonin would be the happiness hormone.
They both control that. They're both stimulants in that sense. But
so dopamine
is excitement in the body.
Yeah. And in some cases, one of my theories, I'm not going to put it in my book, but it's one of my perspectives, is that chemistry that people feel, that love that people feel, is the combination of their auras, their souls, and more importantly, the probabilistic future that combination can create. And they basically fall in love with the life that's possible together with that union. And that's what they enjoy. It's that image. And so that ends up being another level of understanding what that chemical attraction is, but still people end up being only in the physical. And to that is a detriment to long-term stability, sustainability, and the growth of the soul. So people have to recognize the soul in order to work on it. If they think that it's only material and when we're gone, well,
it's true.
There's not much to say. Sorry, go ahead, live your life. It's going to end when it's going to end. Congratulations, do what you're going to do. So whereas we have to have a comprehension and understanding that there is something much more higher above us. Neurotransmitter, yeah. Nervous system, usually when you do exercise.
Plays a significant role in how we feel pleasure.
Yeah, serotonin as well. But the way that it's produced, dopamine is usually produced in joggers.
I wanted to make sure we weren't misquoting anything because we were just,
See,
fact checking us live so that people know that we're not just trying to make up BS. We're trying to talk about what we're talking about, and then it's nice to back it up with some facts every once in a while.
That's the thing people don't get about me is that I back up my facts because I know. I've studied those things. I mean, I remember studying psychology when I was in college, and yes, dopamine, serotonin were extremely important, which is why I do some of the things that I do, because I recognize the importance of maintaining those levels in the brain, but also the negative effects of other stimulants. For example, stress.
Same with depleting them. Like, you got to be able to have these breaks of floods of dopamine or serotonin, because otherwise you can develop a problem from it. I don't remember
a resistance to it. You become
that is
depressed because your body won't accept more of the serotonin or dopamine because
your body treats it like a drug. Yeah,
you've already exhausted. You've overextended the receptors. Yeah, absolutely. Everything ends up being like that, and every addiction has the same tendency for the same reasons, because they're all working on the same chemical neurotransmitters, just in different ways. Yeah, definitely. Now, I don't know if I've ever been a baby soul. I've been an old soul since I came down here, because I'm just too damn serious.
Isn't the adult that's always a child the baby soul, and then the little girl that listens to classic rock and has an old soul? Or it's always that oxymoron.
It's not necessarily
not
that
oxymoron, but that difference that you wouldn't expect.
No, but what you got to understand is what they mean by old and baby. Baby, you're still, for example, babies don't understand that there's anything else in the world. They understand me. I'm hungry. I'm tired. I'm cold. I feel pain. The universe will serve me. That's the baby. And you serve that baby until they get big enough to take care of themselves and eventually be able to take care of you. And that's the old souls, is being able to understand that taking care of others is one of the most important things that we need to do. That's the reason we're here. We all take care of each other. But the baby souls are all talking about me, wah, 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 you bothered me, you pissed me off. Everybody needs to serve me. That's the baby. There's lots of those around. We call them immature people, but hell, you got people that are 80 years old that still act that way. I mean, we got a fucking president, for God's sakes, that does the same damn thing. No, sorry, he doesn't even know where he's at. Sorry.
But man, I think we did a little over an hour and a half live. I think I want to wrap this one up. I'm not gonna lie, I gotta get some of that lovely pizza in me.
I understand you completely. Next Thursday we'll come replete with some topics so that I won't drown out in the conversation.
No, we're fine. I think we never drown out in the conversation. We always got something to talk about.
I wasn't very upbeat today. I was kind of in a more of a mood, and that kind of reflected. So apologize for anybody who got that. But Mud Rabbit, thank you for your participation.
Exactly. And when we got people like Mud Rabbit tuning in, helping the conversation keep going and answering questions, that's what keeps us going and makes us more involved too.
Well, that's what my channel is about, is, answering people's doubts and questions and that sort of thing, and just getting more stuff out there. So thank you, Mud Rabbit. Appreciate it. And you're definitely a blessing. So thanks, girl. Appreciate it. Jake, I appreciate you, man, all the effort and everything else. Your list of coming up interviewees is huge and growing ever more. You're gonna have to.
We've added 2 sets in advance now. Yeah, I got to start updating some of the dates as soon as I get them locked in stone. I try to let everybody know about them. Just to give everybody a heads up, Melinda was going to be on today. She is I want to have a resume in front of me, but I would consider her a spiritualist, and she works with people with a lot of protection, a lot of different things. What was that?
That was the tarot cards that you were talking about?
Yeah, that's what she's gonna do with me in the actual video. And so the time just got changed. I think it's going to be on Saturday. I got to confirm the time, but it will be this Saturday. It just got moved a little bit. She had a family emergency to take care of, so hopes and prayers with her.
You got to take care of those beings that are very special to you, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. Hopes and prayers with her, and hopefully we get to catch an interview with her Saturday. And next week we have another author coming on by the name of, I believe, Steve Meyer, and he's got some information about the pyramids we're going to talk about, and I'll get all this stuff up by later, and hopefully everybody will be able to see it on our later podcast. We'll run a little ticker on the bottom.
It looks like you're going on almost every day, man. I know that this week we've been on 3 times.
Stay
And I know you've done shows without me in that, so you're almost on every day, man.
We're doing 6. We did 6 hours 2 days ago. I did at least 5 to 6 hours yesterday. It's plus working my job. It gets exhausting, but it's enjoyable. I like the conversations I'm getting to have and the people I'm getting to meet. So hopefully we can keep up.
Yesterday, he's a friend of mine, and he likes the excitement that I feel whenever I'm going to be doing this stuff, because I enjoy being able to talk to you guys, to shoot the shit, and be able to have conversations with all the different people that you've brought on. And Mud Rabbit, you're exceptional. Thank you very much. Spreading the word. That's what we're trying to do. And my father keeps telling me it's the message, not the messenger. So it's not about me. It's about what he wants for us, because we got to prepare. We got to be careful, because there's a big bad wolf out there, and he wants to eat us all up. Peace out. Thank you very much, Jake. Appreciate everything.
Thank you, Mud Rabbit. Everybody have a good night. Michael, talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.